Enterprise Risk Management, ERM, is a structured process that helps organizations identify, assess, and manage risks, especially those that affect information systems. The goal is to make sure risks are understood, controlled, and kept within acceptable limits, based on the organization's risk appetite. ERM covers the entire cycle, from identifying risks to analyzing, evaluating, treating, and monitoring them. This ensures that decision-makers know what could go wrong, how serious the risk is, and what can be done to reduce or eliminate it. Example: in a financial institution, ERM might identify the risk of unauthorized access to customer data. After evaluating the risk, management could treat it by implementing multi-factor authentication and continuous monitoring tools. An effective ERM program also clearly defines responsibilities, specifying who owns each risk, who monitors it, and who reports on it. Example: the CISO may be responsible for managing cybersecurity risk, while the CFO oversees financial risk exposure. By aligning IT risk management with business goals, organizations can make better strategic decisions and avoid surprises. For IS auditors, ERM provides valuable insight into how IT risks are prioritized and managed, helping them determine whether controls are effective and appropriate. In short, ERM ensures that risks are not just known, but actively managed, so the organization can take smart risks confidently while protecting its assets and reputation. When managing risks, organizations have four main options: mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid. The choice depends on how serious the risk is and how much risk the business is willing to take, also known as its risk appetite. Mitigate, reduce the risk. This means putting controls or safeguards in place to lower the likelihood or impact of a risk. Example: a company installs firewalls, antivirus software, and trains staff to reduce the risk of a cyber attack. Share or transfer. Here, the organization shifts part or all of the risk to another party, often through insurance or outsourcing. Example: a company purchases cyber insurance or uses a cloud provider with strong security guarantees to transfer some of the data risk. Accept. Sometimes, the cost of fixing a risk is higher than the impact of the risk itself. In such cases, management decides to accept the risk, but it must be documented and approved. Example: a small business may choose not to back up a non-critical internal chat system because the impact of loss is minimal. Avoid. This means eliminating the activity that causes the risk. Example: a company decides not to process payments directly online to avoid the risks of handling credit card data. In short, effective risk management isn't about removing all risk. It's about making informed decisions on how to handle each one in the best interest of the organization. Developing a strong risk management program starts with two key steps: defining the purpose and assigning responsibilities. First, you must establish the purpose of the program. This means identifying why the organization needs to manage risk and what goals it wants to achieve. The purpose usually includes protecting assets, ensuring business continuity, complying with regulations, and supporting informed decision-making. Example: in a financial services company, the goal might be to reduce the risk of data breaches, fraud, and regulatory penalties. Next, it's essential to assign responsibilities for managing risk. This defines who will identify, analyze, and respond to risks, and who will monitor progress. Clear accountability ensures that risk management doesn't become everyone's job, but instead has specific owners and oversight. Example: the Chief Risk Officer, CRO, or CISO may oversee IT and cybersecurity risks, while departmental heads handle risks in their business areas. Together, these steps create the foundation for an organized and proactive risk management program, one that ensures risks are managed consistently, aligned with the organization's risk appetite, and reviewed regularly for improvement. In short, a well-defined purpose and clear responsibilities make risk management an integrated part of business strategy, not just a compliance exercise. The risk management process is a structured way for organizations to identify and handle potential risks to their information assets. It typically involves 5 key steps, from finding what's valuable to deciding how to respond. Asset identification. The first step is to identify what needs protection: systems, data, applications, or people. Example: an insurance company identifies its customer database, policy management system, and payment platforms as critical assets. Evaluation of threats and vulnerabilities. Next, assess what could harm those assets and where the weaknesses lie. Example: threats may include cyber attacks or insider misuse. Vulnerabilities could be weak passwords or outdated software. Evaluation of impact. Determine how badly the organization would be affected if a threat exploited a vulnerability. Example: a ransomware attack on customer data could halt operations and damage the company's reputation. Calculation of risk. Risk is the combination of likelihood and impact. Organizations calculate or estimate this to prioritize which risks need attention first. Example: high likelihood, high impact risks, like phishing attacks, get top priority. Evaluation of and response to risks. Finally, decide how to respond, whether to mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid the risk, and put controls in place. Example: installing multi-factor authentication, MFA, mitigates unauthorized access risks. In summary, this process helps organizations focus resources on the most serious risks, ensuring their IT systems remain secure, reliable, and aligned with business goals. Residual risk is the level of risk that remains after controls have been put in place. No matter how strong the security or process controls are, it's impossible to eliminate all risk completely. There's always something left. If the residual risk is higher than the organization's risk appetite, stronger or additional controls should be introduced to reduce it further. Example: after implementing firewalls and encryption, if data breaches are still possible due to weak passwords, introducing multi-factor authentication, MFA, can further reduce the risk. However, if residual risk is lower than the organization's risk appetite, management may consider relaxing some controls to save costs, but only after a careful review. Example: a company might reduce the frequency of full system backups from daily to weekly if data loss risk is already minimal and storage costs are too high. Effective IT risk management operates at 3 levels. Operational level: managing daily IT risks like access control, data backups, or patch management. Project level: addressing risks specific to IT projects such as software development or system upgrades. Strategic level: aligning IT risk management with the organization's long-term goals and business strategy. Example: operational risks might be handled by IT support, project risks by project managers, and strategic risks by executives through enterprise risk reporting. In short, residual risk management ensures that risk remains at acceptable levels, while multi-level risk oversight keeps the organization secure, efficient, and aligned with its overall objectives. When deciding whether to accept residual risk, the risk that remains after controls are applied, organizations must carefully evaluate several key criteria. The goal is to ensure that the remaining risk is reasonable, justified, and aligned with business objectives. Organizational policy. The company's internal policies define who can approve residual risk and under what conditions. Example: a financial institution may require board approval for accepting any cybersecurity risk above a defined threshold. Risk appetite. This is the level of risk the organization is willing to tolerate in pursuit of its goals. Example: a tech startup may accept higher system downtime risk than a hospital, where system failure could affect lives. Risk identification and measurement. Before accepting residual risk, it must be clearly identified, quantified, and documented so management fully understands the potential impact. Uncertainty and risk assessment. The organization must consider unknown factors or changes in the environment that could alter the risk level, such as emerging threats or new technologies. Cost and effectiveness of implementation. Sometimes implementing more controls costs more than the risk itself. Example: spending $100,000 to prevent a $10,000 risk isn't cost-effective. Cost of control versus benefit. Management should evaluate whether the benefit of additional controls outweighs their cost and complexity. In summary, residual risk should only be accepted when it is clearly understood, within the organization's risk appetite, and economically justified, ensuring a smart balance between security and efficiency. The qualitative risk analysis method is a simple and widely used way to assess risks. Instead of using numbers or statistics, it relies on descriptive terms, such as high, medium, or low, to describe how likely a risk is to happen and how serious its impact could be. This approach is based on experience, expert judgment, and checklists rather than detailed calculations. It's often used when there isn't enough data for a full quantitative analysis or when quick decisions are needed. Example: in an insurance company, an auditor might assess the risk of a system outage as high likelihood and high impact because the core policy system is old and runs on outdated hardware. Another risk, like delayed report generation, may be ranked low likelihood and medium impact. Qualitative methods help organizations prioritize risks by focusing on what matters most. The results are usually summarized in a risk matrix, showing the most critical risks at a glance. Although it's subjective, this method is fast, easy to understand, and very useful in early stages of risk assessment or for organizations just starting their risk management process. In short, qualitative analysis helps teams see the big picture, focus on major risks, and make informed decisions without complex calculations. The semi-quantitative risk analysis method is a middle ground between qualitative and quantitative approaches. It uses the same descriptive terms, like high, medium, or low, but assigns numbers to them to make the assessment more objective. For example, instead of just saying a risk is high, the organization might rate it as a 3, medium as 2, and low as 1. These numbers make it easier to compare and prioritize risks based on both their likelihood and impact. Example: a hospital assessing risks might score the likelihood of a cyber attack as 3, high, and the impact as 3, high, giving a total risk score of 9. Another risk, like minor equipment failure, might be 2, medium for likelihood, and 1, low for impact, totaling 3. This helps management see which risks are most critical. This method is often used when exact data isn't available, but the organization still wants a more structured, less subjective way to rank risks than a purely descriptive approach. In summary, the semi-quantitative method combines the simplicity of qualitative analysis with the clarity of numerical scoring, helping organizations make more consistent, data-driven decisions about risk. The quantitative risk analysis method uses numbers and financial values to measure how likely a risk is and how much impact it would have if it happened. Unlike qualitative methods that use high, medium, or low, this approach provides measurable, data-driven results, often in monetary terms. This method is especially useful in a business impact analysis, BIA, where organizations need to understand the potential financial loss if a system fails or a threat occurs. Example: in a bank, if the customer portal goes down for a day, the estimated loss in revenue could be $10 million. That's a quantitative risk impact. The approach uses key formulas and concepts like asset value, AV, how much the asset is worth, exposure factor, EF, the percentage of loss if the risk happens, single loss expectancy, SLE, the expected loss from one event, SLE, AVXEF, annualized rate of occurrence, ARO, how often the event is expected to happen in a year, annualized loss expectancy, ALE, the total expected yearly loss, ALE, SLE x ARO. Example: if a server worth $20 million could lose 25% of its value in a cyber attack, this means exposure factor is 0.25, then single loss expectancy is $5 million. If the attack is expected once every 2 years, that means annualized rate of occurrence is 0.5 and annualized loss expectancy is $2.5 million per year. See the details of calculation on the slide. The main advantage is that results are measurable and can help justify control investments. The drawback is that estimates may vary. Different people might assign different values to the same asset based on their experience. In short, quantitative analysis gives management a clear financial picture of risk, helping them make informed decisions about where to invest in controls and protection.